So managing individual differences in behavior. This has to be the chapter number 2 from our managing people in organizations. Again, it's about people. It's about recruitment. It's about how people work in organizations. It's about how we work in teams, work in groups, and how groups are crucial to the overall organizational performance, and how do people benefit the organizations, because obviously people are the basic, they kind of are the fundamentals of an organization. We do have machines, we do have advancements, but those machines are run by people at the end of the day, no matter which sector it is, no matter which industry it is. So people really matter, from the leader to the first to the first manager, or the first line manager, to the worker, whoever we have, all of them matter from top to bottom. So we will also be studying, like, later in this whole course, not in these slides, how even like a small worker or a frontline worker also matters to the organization. It doesn't matter from which position you are, or which position are you working on, whether it's high or it's low. That is what forms the entire organizational structure, and that is like super crucial to an organization. So anyways, supervising people as people. First of all, I would like to ask you guys, why do you think we need to manage individual differences? Why can't we just go on with them? Because obviously it's not possible for everyone to like everyone, and for everyone to be happy with everyone. When we sit together, we do have conflicts, we do have differences, we do have disagreements. But do you think we can work with those differences between us, or we have to like get over them or resolve them in order to work together?
Resolve them.
And why do you think so? Like, why is it important? It's like personal. I am talking about personal differences. Why do you think we should resolve our personal conflicts before anything else, or before starting on a venture together?
So that the working environment is better, and people can work in a good way. If there is any personal differences between one another, then obviously clashes will be there, and the main motive, that is the goal, people will be moving away from that.
Excellent. Anyone else? So supervising people as people. So definitely it's about sharing the vision for the group and telling them what you actually care about. Kind of like giving them directions while putting yourself in their shoes as well. It's not just about directing, it's about leading people. So this is what we're gonna be studying right now. Our first law of human behavior, we're going to start off with these. People are different. What one person considers a golden opportunity, another considers a threat. Because that's true. For everyone, we all come from diverse backgrounds. We all have different plans. We all have different goals in life, aims in life, targets in life. And I think if you recall from the first chapter, or I don't know, but I think I remember, this is kind of a deja vu situation for me. But in the first chapter we did study it. I think it was leadership something, or maybe whatsoever, but it said that when we were like kind of studying the difference between groups and teams, in a group people have different aims, the end goal is not the same, but in a team people do work towards shared goals, right? So this is that thing, that we all are from different backgrounds, we all are from different we all have different plans for life, and we have like a different look for life. I want my next day to look different than what Hira would want her next day to look like, or how Imad or Hanan would like want their other days, or the coming days, or the future to look like. Maybe I want to become a future star, or maybe I want to become a doctor. So that is there, what I may consider. And talking, and why am I talking about that? Because with those plans, and with those perceptions, and with those mindsets come come also the differences and the disagreements. Those things give rise to disagreements, conflicts, differences in opinion and whatnot. So I may be of a different mindset, you may be of a different, you may be coming from a different school of thoughts. So it's not possible for all of us to have like the same or a like mindset. Anyways, Perception. It's a process of interpreting and understanding one's environment. Obviously, it's about how we perceive environment, and our perception depends upon our brought up. How is our mindset created? How is it like? And that is how we perceive things. I don't know if you have or you have not seen those pictures where they show you where they show you pictures, and then they say those pictures appear differently to different people at the same time. I don't really exactly remember the name. Wait, I'll search it up and I'll let you know what it was.
Sorry, ma'am, can you repeat?
Okay, so I was talking about optical illusions here. Perception is how we perceive our environment, and it's different for everyone. I may be seeing things differently. We both may be seeing a tree, but we would have like different things going through in our mind, right? So I'm just gonna open up a few things in front of you. Okay, these are the fun pictures that are sometimes shown to us. I have also been shown these pictures when I was in doing my BBA. So I think it's this picture, right? Actually, let's open this one. And now I don't know whether what you are seeing, but I can see like a woman who is looking towards the other side. Now they say it's also a woman, I guess, who is I don't know, like these are pictures where different people see different things. I may be seeing differently, and that proves how our mindsets are developed. So I think on the other hand, now this looks like a head, but it also has another meaning to it. Duck or rabbit. Now you have to tell, can you see a duck or a rabbit?
Duck.
Duck. I can also see a duck, but it's a rabbit as well. I don't understand how. But anyways, it's a rabbit as well. No, actually it is a rabbit. I literally just got it. So if you try to, I don't know how to explain it to you guys, but I think it's like, if you see it from one side it looks like a duck, but on the other hand, consider the beak of the duck as the ears of the rabbit, and so you would see like the rabbit is facing the other side. Is it, can you guys like make it?
Yes. Now I can see the rabbit as well.
Yeah, I'm glad. This is the first time I have been exposed to these pictures earlier, but I was never able to make it. But anyways, so yeah, that is there. Anyways, this is another picture now here. Now it is like super clear. Duke, mine. Now we can also see a man here. We can see a tree or a super, a whole scenery here. So it isn't difficult, but then there are some pictures. There are a few pictures where sometimes different people see different things, so that whatever you notice first is how your perception is shaped, or how your mind is shaped. So that is what I wanted to kind of like tell you guys. So process of interpreting and understanding one's environment, we all interpret differently depending upon our brought up, and depending upon our values and whatsoever. Individuals organize and interpret information from their environments using perceptual filters. Now, what are perceptual filters? Perceptual filters are personality, psychology, experience, preferences, beliefs based differences. What do I prefer in life? What have I gone through in life? And that what has that how has that affected my psychology, and how has that develop my personality? All of this is what we call perceptual filters, or all of this shapes our perception. Now we have objective versus perceived realities. Now objective reality is what you see, and perceived reality is what we perceive, or what we believe it to be. So does anyone know the difference?
No.
Imad and Hanan. So I was talking about perceptual reality versus objective reality. So objective reality is what is true, and perceived reality is what we make up in our minds, what is real for us. For example, if we talk about now for example, a phone is like if we talk about reality is what that is in terms of importance. If we talk about, for example, a phone is important to make calls, to communicate, right? But then for us it's important to have to have a good camera in it, or to have a spacious a phone that has a lot of space in it and whatnot. So both are different to have some, to perceive something as true and to have something in truth. Now these are both totally different things. So that is kind of that is the concept of perceived versus objective reality. We assume things and we think what we assume is right, is true. So we kind of like deny facts in our mind and perceive what we want to perceive. So that is a concept of objective versus perceived realities. Yeah, objectivity is just how you can define the word objective. It literally means that something exists, right? And perceived is what you think exists, and it does not exist in real. Anyways, going on to the next thing, we have types of recognition. Frequency with which supervisors say that they give various types of recognition for good performance, and frequency with which subordinates say supervisors give various types of recognition for good performance. Now on one side we see how supervisors are saying, now both have a lot of difference. If you notice, we see like a mega difference in both of those, in both the frequencies. On the left side we have supervisors who claim that they give various types of recognition for good performance. By recognition we could mean, these are the measures of the uh, on the basis of which we measure recognition. It could be in the form of privileges, could be like giving bonuses, or maybe a holiday, maybe a paid holiday trip, etc. Gives more responsibility. If you are doing this, you may also be doing this, or you may also be leading the team now. Pat on the back, that simple, sincere, and thorough praise. Some words of kindness, trains for better jobs. You may get extra training. Gives more interesting work. You may be asked to like go for project from maybe place to place, maybe to another country or something, just to make it more interesting for you to work. So now there's a difference when we are talking about supervisor. So he, according to a supervisor, it's about 52%, but according to a subordinate who is working under the supervisor, it's 14%. Similarly, if you see, there's a huge difference between both the frequencies, and that is how we say, now that is a perceptual difference. According to supervisors, they are being generous maybe by giving 52% of that, but subordinates think, or maybe it's the true, we can't really tell what's the truth between the both of them. They may be, someone may be underestimating, understating, or someone may be overstating right here, but that is still to be figured out. We can't tell it just by looking at this table right here. So anyways, this is what this table is, just to like let you know guys how much perception differs, how much thought process differs. People perceive the world uniquely. Differences in perceptions can cause problems: communication, conflict, motivation, judgment, decision making. Now these are some of the problems that they have listed. They may cause, if I have a disagreement with someone, or I think my mindset set is really different from someone that I know, that I won't, then I won't communicate with him or her, and then we may have conflicts with each other, or lack of motivation, then we may become judgment as well, and decision making also is also affected by such perceptions, or by gap in communication, or by rise of conflicts. So object perception, it's more about objective perceptivity. So it actually means object perception or object recognition is the process in which a visual input is assigned a meaningful interpretation that is available to perceptual awareness. It is fundamental to our ability to interpret and act in the world. So it's just that how we interpret a world, and interpret anything, any object, or any visual input, whatever is in front of us, maybe a picture, an object, or whatsoever, according to ourselves, and we act accordingly. So that is object perception. Then we have social perception, how we gather information about the social world, about people, behavior, moods. As I've mentioned earlier, that though we are being presented with different paradigms of how the different ways of looking at things, but at the end of the day, or the in gist, or the sense of it all, is how we see things, how we understand things, how we perceive things, and all of that really matters upon our brought up, our values, our psychology, our personality, the perceptual filters that we have talked earlier about. So, social perception is how we gather information. What is our perception of the society? Similar to object perception, but people are more dynamic than objects. We are trying to figure out intentions. Now, why are they saying people are more dynamic? Because they change, they move. When we talk about an object, a phone is there, it can't change itself unless obviously there is a new model in the market, but that phone would remain there. The properties, the characteristics, the features, or whatsoever, however we define a phone, any phone, maybe for instance we say iPhone 13. So there are a specific number of characteristics that we have in mind for that phone, and those define, those make iPhone 13 iPhone 13, which is very much different from iPhone 12 or other models. But people are different, we change with time, we develop with time, we grow with time. So that is why it's very hard to kind of like stay consistent and stay to have like consistent personalities in life. I may have anger issues at the age of 12, but I may have now recovered them, and I may have become someone who has a lot of a lot of endurance in her. So that is what they are talking about right now. Then we have causal attribution. Why did they do that? Internal causes, traits, skills, abilities; external causes, situational constraints. Now, what is causal attribution? Anyone, any idea? Now, causal attribution, as they have mentioned here, why did they do that? It really explains, this is a phenomena which explains why events and behaviors occur, why we try to figure out the why behind events, behind things, behind the happenings. So now we try to figure them out upon two bases: internal causes, which means traits, skills, abilities; and external causes are always the situational constraints which make you take decisions or make you do what you do. So that is there. Does it make sense to you? It's just that why are we studying this under social perception? Because we have studied social perception is about people, how we interpret about people, how we interpret society, how we gather information about society, how we digest the society, right? So causal attribution is the process of trying to determine the causes of people's behavior. Why someone, what is the reason behind someone's action, or similar to that. So it could be internal causes, maybe he's skilled at doing this, it's about, it could be his abilities, his characteristics, his personality. And external causes could be the situational constraints, maybe the consequences have put him or her in a situation which made him or her take a decision that he wouldn't have taken in any other situation. So this is how the causal attribution is now in picture. It's because we've studied about social perception, and it's related to that, and it's why people do it's in causal attribution we study the reasons, the several reasons of why people behave in a way they do. Then we have errors, biases, and social perception. Now, fundamental attribution error, the tendency to attribute others' bad performance to internal causes and attribute their good performance to external causes. Now, what we usually do is we don't, whenever someone performs good, so we say he's privileged. For example, even in classes happens, if we see someone speaking so fluently and performing so brightly, so we say, of course he's taking tuitions, he has, that he has such privileges, we do not. We have to go home and we have to cook and we have to walk certain miles. So this is how we kind of leverage our weaknesses with someone else's strengths. Are you getting my point?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Great. So the tendency to attribute others' bad performance to internal causes. Now, this is what they are talking about. There could be errors, and two types of errors are defined here: fundamental attribution error and self-serving bias. Now, you don't actually just get acquainted with these terms so that if you ever come across. I assure you, you won't ever in life would like have to deal with such terms. But again, you, for the sake of knowledge, just try to fathom the meaning of these terms right here, and you'd be good to go. I don't think this would have anything. You mostly get assignments which are situation based. So yeah, this is just a lot of extra, a lot of extra things are stuffed here in these slides. So self-serving biases attribute successes to ourselves, internal attribute failures to environment, external. Now this is exactly what they are talking about, what I have talked about. We usually envy others, and in doing that we kind of develop these biases and these errors in social perception. So when someone performs bad, so we say it's because obviously he wasn't skilled at it, obviously he's doing this, he's doing drugs, he's involved in so many other cases, in so many bad matters, so he had to perform bad. There is no question in that. But when someone performs good, so we had to come to kind of like give the credit to the external things, and not to his internal efforts, to his personality, to his hard work or whatsoever. And then comes self-serving bias. It's about ourselves. When we fail, we say it's because we fail because of someone else. We kind of like distribute the blame equally to the environment. We kind of like put the blame on our environment, on the external factors. Could be our parents, could be our school, could be the teachers, but not us, because we are the angels. And then there are internal biases, where we say we totally attribute our successes to ourselves, no matter how hard our parents have tried with us, no matter how hard our teachers have regarded themselves for our studies or whatsoever. So this is there. Anyways, to moving on to the next slide. Profits are down, our senior management blames the weak economy. So this is exactly, now tell me which this would fall under which category. We have studied two biases here: fundamental attribution error. Now when we talk about fundamental, we talk about others, right? When we talk about self-serving bias, so it's about us. So profits are down, our senior management blames the weak economy. What do you think?
About others.
So it's a fundamental. So they are saying that profits went up because of great management and down because of a weak economy. These meetings will go faster if you stop putting things in context. So this is what they've said. I don't know what they are trying to we can't really guess what the positions are here. But anyways, the person question them, so they are saying the profits went up, this would be because of the great management, but if the profits go down, this would be because of the economy. And then he is asked to kind of like keep quiet and stop putting his nose in such matters. So this is what usually goes around. I don't know about you guys, but where I live, this is the normal, the blame game is always there. We have to play that. We are really good at it. Distortions in perception, review PA, hollow, contrast, primacy, recency, etc., selection perception, filter out information that is discomforting, that seems irrelevant, or that contradicts one's belief or expectations, closure, tendency to fill in the gaps when information is missing, and assume what we don't know is consistent with what we do know. So what do you think it is about? Any guesses? Can you like connect the dots here?
No.
The guys in the room. So what here we are trying to first of all, I just want you to like get the meaning of distortion perception. What do you think when we say perception is distorted, or it's kind of destructed? How is that even possible? Let's put it that way. Either we over perceive things or we under perceive things. Is that right? It works just the way we say we over exaggerate or we under exaggerate, we overstate or we understate. So either we are we perceive something. When I say over perceiving, so I mean we are kind of perceiving, or we are kind of imagining the non-existing mind, or something that does not exist. We are just taking it too far in our imagination. But and when I say we are under perceiving it, that means we are failing to perceive an existent mindset. We are failing to kind of acknowledge the states, or the living states, or the available facts, or the living facts that we have. So that is a distortion in perception. That is how we distort our perceived reality. That is how we fail to perceive what the real thing is, or what is happening. Yeah, it's like it's a very interesting thing. It is a phenomena that causes people to be biased in their judgments. by transferring their feelings about one attribute of something to other unrelated attributes. So this is I'm gonna give you this example. I'm gonna illustrate you using this example. So for example, if I say that you have to know, you have to get to the root of a problem, or you have to get to the truth before you make up things by just looking, by just assuming, or by just looking or at or judging things, right? So we were asked to kind of like help a brand to in marketing or in social media marketing. So he had asked us to choose wisely a local brand that needs your help. So I know this brownie place which is like really nice, but I have never heard of it on Instagram or anywhere else. It's called O Brownies. It's in Pakistan, obviously. So I'm giving, it's a local thing here, local brand here. So they've now recently opened 2 or 3 shops in Islamabad, the capital of Pakistan. So I was like, I know this place, but it's not, it's not mandatory for everyone else to know this, because since I'm not a social media person, I'm not a tech savvy person. So I'm, if I don't know, so I kind of assume that I use social media for like no time. I don't even go to check my Instagram for days and days. So I was like, I don't see a thing on Instagram. I have never seen any advertisement, so people won't know that. So it's easy to choose O Brownies, so that I'd go to them and I'd be like, can I help you with your social media marketing? Can I help you like building a brand online? So my sir was like, no. Now this is the hollow effect the halo effect I was talking about. I am just pronouncing this word so wrong. Anyways, don't mind me. So this is the halo effect. You are just assuming things based on your own perceptions. You think you haven't seen the advertisements on the Instagram or on Facebook or whatsoever platform you're using, and based on those assumptions, you're saying that they need your help. No, we know, a friend of mine has opened that. Now that is how he kind of like insulted me, and he was like, bro, you need to state facts, and you do not come up to me with those with those assumptions and be like, yeah, I can do that, I can do that. I know better than you. And that brand does not, that O Brownies, or call it a brand or whatsoever, does not need your help. So like, go and find a real, a local brand that needs advertisement, that needs free helping in real. So that is halo effect. When you assume things, based on your own judgments, based on your own values, based on you, on what you think is right and what you think is wrong, without going into the details, or without kind of like checking, or or figuring out the cause behind what, how things work. So also, there's this example. You might see a physically beautiful person, assume they are generous, smart, or trustworthy. Now this is again a very common example of halo effect. When we see a person who may be looking very nice and decent, and kind of like, um overall, by the looks, he or she may be looking really nice, so we automatically assume he would be generous, he would be smart, or she would be generous, she would be smart. We just kind of uh, relate or associate us, how beauty with brains, but that is not how it always works. A person may be, maybe looking really good and appealing in real, may have like no brain at all, maybe walking brainless around the streets. So that is what we assume. So you don't, this is the hollow effect that we were talking about. That is, I hope it made sense to you, but I was kind of like excited to talk about this because this is what we recently studied. Then comes the contrast effect. Now a contrast effect, as the name shows, that we kind of, we, what do we say, what's the word, we compare things. Now it's an effect, it's an unconscious bias that happens when two things are judged in comparison to one another instead of being assessed individually. Now this is what we studied when we were studying, there's a subject called consumer behavior, and there we talked about this thing. Our perception is totally altered when once we start to kind of like compare things to one another. We tend to judge them relative to each other, rather than, rather than on their own merit or on their own features or traits or whatsoever. A good example would be, so there's this example, for example, so since we are studying about people here, so there's this example where they say, when we hire people, so usually the interviewees or the ones who are who are responsible for hiring or who are responsible for interviewing the interviewees or are responsible for hiring them, so they kind of, without, they don't really assess the individuals upon their own skills or abilities. They compare the people. Now, for example, if we need someone who is a tech savvy person, but he is not good at communication. He is a good, or you could say the smartest, maybe graphic designer available, but he may not be able to speak fluently, or he is too shy or maybe hesitant to communicate his thoughts. So if I need a graphic designer for my company, and then there is another person who is very good at communication, but he is not up to the mark when it comes to making graphics, or making good infographics or stuff like that. So we kind of compare the both of them when there is nothing to compare. We need someone who knows how to work with computers and how to work with graphics. So the ultimate decision should be someone who may not be speaking fluently, because we don't need communication skills for that. We only need someone who can work on computers. But we kind of compare them, and we kind of judge them in relation to each other. We kind of compare them, and that is another thing which kind of distorts our perception. Then comes the primacy or recency. Now this is another thing that I will show you a kind of picture to it, and it's the effect. It's the observation that information presented at the beginning, which is the primacy. At the, primarily whatever is shown to you, the word is there. And end, which is the recency. Towards the end of a learning episode, tends to be retained better than information which is presented in the middle. So I don't know whether you have come across or not, but we were kind of taught a lot about how to give presentations, and we were taught you have to have a good start, and you have to have a good end, better than the middle one. So you have to focus at the beginning and the end, because that is where your audience is most active, and that is where you can raise the level of your delivery, the level of your presentation, or whatsoever you are doing, whatsoever the activities in which you are involved. So you have to have a good start and a good ending. That is why, now this is the primacy and recency effect, where we say that information is retained in a better way towards the start and towards the end of any session. And you also would notice that whenever you are engaged in a session, even in this one, I think so, you would have been much more active when we have started, and you would be like, yeah, fine, whatsoever, and this is how it actually goes. And then towards the middle, we all kind of like go to sleep, and we don't really stay focused. And this is what I also have done in my classes, in my online classes, because online classes are actually very boring. So they are not that productive. I don't really consider them super productive, but it's better than to do like nothing. So, and then you suddenly become super active towards end, because that teacher may be asking questions, or he or she may be asking for attendance or whatsoever. So that is also an effect that we study in psychology, and that kind of like distorts our perception. Then comes selective perception. It's super simple. It's just how the words are there. Filter out information that is discomforting, that seems irrelevant, or that contradicts one's beliefs or expectations. So we kind of like, it actually happens with us. I want you guys to answer me on this. Do you prefer someone, do you believe someone who talks like you, or do you or kind of like get offended with someone who does not talk like you? And when I say talk like you, does not talk like you, I mean that there's a difference of opinion. For example, if I say I love chocolates, and someone else will say, oh yeah, I love that too, this and that. But then there is someone who says, oh, chocolates are, only amateurs eat chocolates, and these are not good for health, they have a lot of sugar content in it. And there would just be a fight going on, and I'd be like, okay, I just follow that rule where the two wrongs don't make one, right? I hope that is how it goes. But anyways, we kind of present with our own, disagreements and baseless facts there in order to prove our point. How this is how what am I saying is right and how what are you saying is wrong. So that is selective. Anyways, that is type of selective perception, that we hear what we want to hear and we eliminate the information or pieces of information or tracks of information that we don't want to believe, or that kind of contradict with our own expectations or with our own beliefs. Closure, tendency to fill in the gaps when information is missing. Now this is also a part of customer behavior, or actually people's behavior. So when we see gaps, we tend to fill in the information ourselves, assume what we don't know is consistent with what we do know, so we kind of assume things in the middle, to kind of like complete a story. So I have to show you a picture of privacy, recency, and then we're gonna move on. So this is the graphs. These now they show the attention span is optimal towards during the start and towards the end of any session. Could be any TED talk, could be a teaching lesson, and all these graphs are similar to this. Secondly, I had to also show you about, so reflects a desire for clear, definite, or unambiguous knowledge that will guide perception and action, as opposed to undesirable alternative of this. Now we have a diagram, and I hope I get it. Okay, this is a diagram. So now you see there are gaps and we fill them according to our own mindset. People tend to fill in blanks to perceive a complete object whenever an external stimuli partially matches that object. So we tend to like fill in information according to what we perceive, according to our perceptions, existing ideologies, existing thought processes, and we do that. Then there are also other pictures. For example, this one, this is called we have studied exactly this thing. I hope it opens right here. Now this is similar to what I have, to what we are doing right now. This is how we kind of fill in the pieces of information. People tend to fill in blanks to perceive a complete object whenever an external stimuli partially matches that object. So whenever we come across situations where we have missing pieces of information, so we tend to fill them, just like the we kind of like tend to fill in this. So for example, this mostly happens when there's a grade point structure in an organization, or when there is like a lot of cross communication, or even when it comes to normal groups in classes, it's mostly about gossiping. So for example, when we hear someone, oh my god, this happened, this, and then we tend to like fill in the gaps, how this might have happened, and we kind of like come up with a full story. So this is exactly how it works. Then I had to show you which what was it, the other thing that we were talking about. Okay, recency and so this is the primacy and recency effect. Opening primacy, closing recency. It's how it just shows how why is it not even opening? Okay, this one. So it shows the retention is optimal to when during the start and towards the end of any session or any thing, any conversation. So that is like how our, because obviously we tend to kind of listen to the conversation towards the start with maximum attention, and that also happens towards the end of every session. So we kind of miss on the information that is being delivered to us towards the middle of any session or meeting or conversation. And so what happens towards the end is that we come up with retention is maximum during the start of any session, any meeting, any conversation, and maximum towards the end of any session, meeting, or whatsoever. So this just shows that this effect results in us having distorted or missing pieces of information. So we are never clear of the picture because of this effect. And this mostly happens, and this is a very common phenomena. We kind of like tend to stay active towards the start, towards the commencement, during the commencement of any session, and then towards the end only. And then we tend to like forget to miss the important pieces of information that are delivered to us during the middle of any session. Get my point?
Yes.
Okay, so we're gonna move on. This is how they've defined a few. They've taken a few effects. Again, you don't have to remember them by name. It's just that if you ever come across with these, just know that halo effect is, oh my god, come on, Sadia. Halo effect is when you tend to form things, you kind of like over imagine things, you over assume things, you over perceive things, you just make up things, you don't go to the real thing. Contrast is when you contrast two things without instead of like kind of like evaluating them on the basis of individual traits or characteristics or whatsoever. And then we have primacy, decency, that attention span is, or retention span is maximum to during the start and towards the end of any session. Then we have selective perception. We kind of like tend to perceive in the pieces of information that are in accordance with our own beliefs and expectations, and kind of like omit those that are not in accordance with our own expectations, beliefs. And we have closure principle, which is about we tend to fill in the gaps whenever we have missing pieces of information, and we tend to like come up with our own stories. Next comes stereotyping. Now this is a very common phenomena. Stereotyping is tending a tendency to attribute. So okay, I kind of like summarized all of these. Are you clear about these? What is review PA? This has like 3 or 4 phenomena: halo, contrast, selective, closure. Is there any confusion about these?
No.
Okay, great. So the last one here is stereotyping, and I want you guys to tell me what is stereotyping. It's a very common and a very prevalent phenomena, and we do this like 1,000 times a day.
Like we simply judge someone or like that.
Exactly. Exactly. That's just that. That's how we kind of stereotype things. Don't like we usually tend to hear this thing a lot. Na? There are certain stereotypes regarding genders or regarding this or that. So it's more like you could see kind of a belief thing, a cliche thing maybe, or a formula that people use to kind of assess things. It's just a cliche, you could say. It's the more appropriate for this. But anyways, tendency to attribute to an individual the characteristics one believes are typical of the group to which that individual belongs. So for example, if we say that now obviously it covers kind of all the biases, gender biases, ethnicity biases, role biases, gender bias, sorry, yeah, all of that. So for example, if we say that he is of a certain color, so he would be of certain race, and then he would be of the same type. He may be greedy if he is from Pakistan, so he has to be poor, I mean, these are some of the things that we kind of develop, some of the beliefs that we kind of develop with time, and how we see, how it is not really in us, but it's how we see. It's how the information is delivered to us. It's the manner that matters, and that kind of like shapes our beliefs and thoughts. Where we are wrong is we don't tend to like go into the depths of those informations. We don't go for validations. We don't try to find or like look for facts. So for example, there is this bias, and that English people are, no offense to anyone, but just an example, a very random example, that English people are very are proudy. So I may have developed this belief over the period of time by watching their movies maybe, or by listening to the stories that we had, or this listening to the, or reading those conflicts that we had with the English nation in the past or whatsoever, and those have really had an impact on my personality and my perception, such in a way that now I may just meet any English person and be like, he's known to be proudy, and if ever he or she does something, I'd be like, see, I knew what he was proudy. So those are the stereotyping that we do in our usual life. It's just one example, but we do it like we repeat things, we don't learn, but try to avoid those things. And again, these are the distortions in perception. This is how our perceptions are distorted. Next comes self fulfilling prophecy. Now, self fulfilling prophecy is phenomena in which people's expectations of themselves or others lead them to behave in ways that make those expectations come true. Also called the Pygmalion effect. Can someone explain to me what is this by like looking at this?
Like if someone tries to like make himself better in front of the people, like trying to make trying to make an image, good image in front of others. Like he continuously says good things about himself.
Mm-hmm.
Like basically self-respecting. And I can't find the word, but it's like this like of self-respecting. Like you
Mm-hmm.
basically tell about yourself more and more. Like even people don't want to know, you still tell them and like this.
True, true. This is more like a phenomena where a person or group expectations for the behavior of another person or group serves actually to bring about the expected behavior. So it's just like expectations, um, they kind of like lead to the expected behavior. Now, an example that I have studied on internet was this. In a One of the classic examples of self prophecy fulfilling prophecy comes from the Greek story of Oedipus. I think we've studied this in our primary classes. In the story, Oedipus' father's I don't know the name, is warned that his son will eventually kill him. To avoid meeting his fate, he abandons his son and leaves him to die. So this is the self-fulfilling phenomena where we kind of like we process through, we kind of like a false expectations leads to its own confirmation. Like any assumption, some events happen that kind of, now we kind of like believe in false happenings, and we kind of like come up with assumptions, we make assumptions, and then some events occur that kind of reinforce those assumptions, and we tend to believe, okay, yeah, that was so right. And then that's how I think myths are formed. It's just it's simply, in a way, if I describe it, it's you predict something, and that prediction comes true. So yeah, that's self-fulfilling prophecy. It's a false belief that makes people to kind of act in a way that objectively confirms the belief, just the way we started and we kind of like learned through this story, where a father abandons his own son because someone tells him that his son will eventually kill him in the future. So what he does, he kind of like abandons his son, and that is how it goes. So this is a, I don't know, I haven't actually seen this, but this does happen. We tend to kind of we kind of like mistake, interchangeably use this with guts or with intuitions. Oh, I had this intuition, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened. So we kind of like form beliefs in our minds and nothing more. So this is self-fulfilling prophecy. Now we have perception implications. Increase the accuracy of your own perceptions. We've talked about supervising people as people. So mainly up till now we have studied, what are perceptions, and what are the certain types of perceptions, and how perceptions are distorted, how we overstate, how we overperceive, how we underperceive. What is this law of human? Now this is totally not important to remember, but I think they've given this for some sort of reference here. Anyways, what is perception? It's it's how we tend to analyze or interpret information using perceptual filters. And what are perceptual filters? These are personality, psychology, experience, preferences, which we kind of form over the period of time. Then the social perception is of how we gather information about the people. Then we have, okay, we also had this object perception, how we perceive an object when it's placed in front of us, any visual object. And how social and object perception are different, because in social perception we talk about people, whereas in object perception we talk about objects and non-living things. Then we have causal attribution. It's the reason, it's a phenomena where we study why people do what they do, the reason behind the actions of the people. So we studied there could be two causes, internal and external causes. Then upon that we studied errors, biases in social perception. And where there is fundamental attribution, where we say, we associate bad performance to internal causes, that he or she may be lacking this or that, and then we attribute good performance to external causes, that he or she may be super privileged. And then we have self-serving biases, where we kind of like play the blame game, where we say, if we fail, so we'd be failing because of someone else, and if we pass, we'd be passing because of ourselves only. Then there was this some sort of a joke here. Anyways, and we have distortions in perception, where we talk about halo effect, we have talked about contrast effect, we have talked about primacy, recency. Then we said selective perception, closure. Is there something that you want me to repeat here? because I'll be actually asking you guys, so please don't hesitate to ask me.
No, nothing is, I mean, there's no question.
Okay. Then we have stereotyping. It's how we generalize and we kind of like associate stuff. Then self-fulfilling prophecy. It's how our assumptions turn into reality, and we kind of then reinforce those assumptions because we kind of form beliefs when those assumptions turn into reality. And those assumptions turn into reality. The process where things we kind of like what we tend to believe. For example, if I say if I eat chocolates I will become fat, so I would stop eating chocolates in order to not become fat, or I do something in order to avoid that outcome. So that is self fulfilling prophecy. And then we have perceptual implications. So anyways guys, I think we have done till